December 1979, the Soviet Union rolls its tanks into Afghanistan, igniting a brutal, decade-long conflict that would have repercussions far beyond the mountains of Central Asia. But few know the critical role played by Pakistan's Air Force just across the border. Caught between two superpowers, Pakistan found itself at the edge of one of the most intense Cold War battlegrounds, where the only line of defense was a vigilant group of pilots, high-tech jets, and an unbreakable resolve. In December of 1979, the Cold War took a dangerous new turn. When Soviet troops poured into Afghanistan, Pakistan became the last buffer between the Soviet Union and the Arabian Sea. For Pakistan's leaders, this was an alarming development. The Soviet Union's expansionism now threatened to spill over Pakistan's borders, potentially giving the USSR strategic access to the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. Recognizing that threat, Pakistan turned to its most reliable partner, the United States. By the early 1980s, the US had committed billions of dollars in support to Pakistan, with the Pakistani Air Force, or PAF, at the front line of the military strategy. Officially, Pakistan maintained a policy of neutrality, but in reality, the country was a critical player in the complex proxy war unfolding just across its border. To defend its sovereignty, the Pakistan Air Force needed an upgrade. In 1983, Pakistan acquired its most prized asset from the United States, the F-16 Fighting Falcon. This fourth-generation multi-role jet was faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with advanced radar systems that gave the PAF a critical edge over the older Soviet MiGs in the region. The PAF would ultimately acquire around 40 F-16s during the 1980s, all stationed along the Afghan border. These jets, with their top speed of over Mach 2 and advanced AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles, became the backbone of Pakistan's defense strategy. For PAF pilots, the F-16 was a game-changer, capable of outperforming Soviet aircraft in almost every metric, from speed and agility to firepower. Throughout the Soviet-Afghan War, Pakistan's airspace was frequently tested. Soviet MiG-23 and Su-22 jets would occasionally breach Pakistani airspace, chasing Afghan resistance fighters or conducting reconnaissance. Each time, the PAF was ready. From 1986 to 1989, PAF pilots flew hundreds of border patrol sorties, intercepting Soviet intruders and protecting Pakistan's sovereignty. Over these years, several confrontations between PAF F-16s and Soviet MiGs became close calls, with Soviet aircraft often retreating when Pakistani fighters approached. But in a few high-stakes encounters, things escalated. One of the most famous incidents occurred on April 17, 1987. On this day, PAF pilot Flight Lieutenant Abbas Khattak engaged and shot down a Soviet MiG-23 that had violated Pakistani airspace, marking one of the Cold War's rare air-to-air combat kills involving an American-made F-16 and a Soviet fighter. This wasn't an isolated event. Between 1986 and 1989, PAF F-16s reportedly shot down at least 9 intruding aircraft, including Soviet-made Su-22s and MiG-23s. These kills solidified the PAF's reputation and demonstrated its readiness to defend Pakistani airspace even at the risk of provoking a superpower. But the PAF's role wasn't limited to air combat. Throughout the Soviet-Afghan War, the PAF played a crucial role in intelligence and reconnaissance, monitoring Soviet troop movements, keeping tabs on aerial incursions, and relaying crucial data back to allies. The PAF's operations went far beyond dogfights. To gather intelligence, the PAF operated radar stations and observation posts along the Afghan border, often relaying crucial information to the CIA. This intelligence helped guide American support for the Afghan Mujahideen and inform decisions on arms supplies and air defense strategies. Besides the aerial dogfights and intercept missions, the PAF had another crucial responsibility: defending Pakistan's own military installations and border towns. With Soviet forces conducting airstrikes against Afghan villages close to the Pakistani border, there was a constant risk that Soviet aircraft could turn their sights on Pakistani targets. To counter this, Pakistan built an integrated network of anti-aircraft defenses, with PAF personnel operating radar-guided artillery and missile systems stationed along the western border. This multi-layered defense deterred Soviet pilots from crossing too deep into Pakistani territory, creating a security buffer zone along the frontier. Maintaining a constant state of vigilance along such a volatile border came at a cost. Over the course of the Soviet-Afghan War, the PAF flew thousands of hours in intense, high-alert patrols, constantly guarding against potential incursions. This demand took its toll on personnel and equipment alike. The F-16s needed near constant maintenance, with crews working around the clock that they ensured the jets were ready at a moment's notice. Despite the challenges, the PAF's morale remained high. For these pilots and crews, defending their country was a matter of pride, a way to demonstrate Pakistan's strength and resilience. Each successful patrol, every safe interception, and every kill sent a message to the world. The PAF was prepared to defend Pakistan's sovereignty no matter the cost. By 1989, the last Soviet soldier crossed the border back into the USSR. The Pakistani Air Force emerged with invaluable combat experience, a more advanced arsenal, and a reputation as one of the most capable air forces in South Asia. The PAF's involvement in the Soviet-Afghan War marked a turning point, one that pushed its technology, strategy, and resilience to new heights. Today, the PAF carries forward the lessons of that era. The experience it gained from defending Pakistan's airspace during the Soviet-Afghan War shaped its strategies and doctrines, embedding a legacy of vigilance and tactical adaptability that still influences the PAF's operations. 40 years have passed since the start of the Soviet-Afghan War, but the bravery, skill, and dedication of the Pakistani Air Force during those years remain a defining chapter in Pakistan's history. The Guardians of the Sky stood watch when it mattered most, proving that the PAF was, and always will be, a force to be reckoned with.